Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Callis and Marks with your host, Joe Stazak, my man right there, Steve Callis. We're broadcasting. We're semi-live. I'm in Florida. My man Steve is up in New York. Speaking of Florida and New York, we'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals between the Rangers and the Panthers coming up soon. We're going to start with NBA. Steve, how are you, my friend?
All good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
Well, I didn't think after Denver came back to take even in game 4, I think I said, I don't think Denver's losing another game. And they did. They lost game 6. So let's take us back. We'll get to that game actually in a second. I want to go with the Knicks first because that was the game that happened last night. And I didn't think it was going to end last night, and it didn't. Both teams have held serve with home court. Game 7 at the Garden. How tight's that place going to be, considering there might be some ghosts of Knicks past, and Reggie Miller might be in the house, and all that kind of stuff going on.
Well, Knicks are 5-2 lifetime in Game 7 at the Garden. I don't know if that means anything, with the biggest one ever, of course, being the Willis Reed game.
Willis Reed.
Or I call it the Walt Frazier game.
Yeah, Walt Frazier gets hosed. That's like Mark Johnson and the beating the Russians, because no one mentions Mark Johnson. All Ruzioni.
Right. But whatever. But look, this has been a home team won every game. None of them were close. I think all of them were double digits.
They were.
So I like the Knicks, but the problem is I don't know how bad Hart is hurt for him to even come out of the game. And then he went to the locker room, I think, with like 6 minutes left, holding, I don't know if it was his stomach. He had an ice pack over his stomach. I don't know if he got hit there or something, but the OG is not going to play. When you see a guy, you saw it last week, when he hurt his, I think he tore his hamstring, man. I don't know if he'll be back at all, even if they win.
That's rough. That's a rough recovery.
A hamstring, right. A hamstring, you knew he wasn't going to play the next 2 games, but now he can't play game 7. I think Hart, because he did come back in the game, and then when it wasn't a game, he went to the locker room. And he's a gamer. I mean, there's nobody tougher than him.
Sure.
And Brunson, I still think Brunson's hurting. He's up and down. I think he had I want to say 5 points in the first half, but 23, I think, in the second or something like that. And he's a gamer too, but they're putting 4 different guys on him. They're all trying to be physical with him. Your guy, boy, could the 76ers use your guy TJ? What's his last name?
You know what? TJ McConnell, every time I see him in the game, he is just instant energy, and he's instant points, and he's instant productivity. I never see him make hardly a mistake. All he does is rack up assists, quality points, quality minutes. His teammates love him. I mean, why did the Sixers get rid of that guy?
I don't know, but they could use him because they finally said yesterday.
Last night.
You and I talked about it for years now, but they finally said, for years I was like Kawhi Leonard, the best mid-range jumper in basketball. Well, TJ McConnell is one of the best mid-range jumpers, and when he elevates on his jump shot, man, he gets really up. And once he's in, I bet you he's shooting 65% in the paint. And that's what he can do. He can go to the basket, pull up 8, 10, 12 feet.
7 of 13 last night.
No, he's a big help, and he's a gamer, and he takes no grief from anybody. He's happy to get in Brunson's face or anybody's face. Now, Brunson can beat him, but he does a good job. They got 3 or 4 guys who are getting after him. Nembhard can't guard Brunson. But there's always a fresh guy on Brunson, and he's going to have a big game because I don't think Hart's going to be 100%. I assume he's playing you can't complain about injuries. I like Brunson. You got to give him credit. Every time he says we show up with who we got and we play with who we got. And it doesn't matter that OG's hurt or Mitchell Robinson's hurt or Julius Randle got hurt, 4 months ago or whatever it is. But I give them credit, and I like them only because of the home games. I know we're going to go talk about Denver because it's almost the opposite with Denver, but I'm going to say I like Denver because they're the defending champs. They got beat the first game and slaughtered the second game, and everybody and their mother was like, the series is over. And we were like, well, hold it now. It's Denver.
I'm out.
And you're right. When they won the next 3, I thought they were going to win game 4. They got beat by 45. So you can't, how do you know? But I'm going to go with Denver only because, again, experience. The thing about Minnesota and OKC for that matter, because now that Dallas has a year with, Kyrie and Doncic playing together, they're a different team. And OKC hasn't been anywhere. Minnesota hasn't been anywhere. They haven't been to the playoffs much. They don't have a lot of experience. And now you're looking at a game 7 for Denver, which is at home. I understand that's not maybe the greatest place to be in this series, but they're at home. And, you know, I think Denver's going to win. I
They're
mean,
going to blow their doors off tomorrow. It's not going to. It's my prediction. I usually say it's going to be a wrap. They're going to be fine. I fully believe they're going to be fine. They're at home. They're the champs. They've shown that when they need to play, they can play. I don't know what happened in Game 6, but
well, Murray didn't have a good game. Jokic was good, but wasn't Jokic. And it really gets down to those two guys. Do they need help? Yeah, absolutely, they need help. But it's really about those two guys and how well they play.
You're a superstar. When I have to tell you this, by the way, and I'll tell you it on the air. The game I didn't think was much in question last night. So towards the end, me and my dad started watching the Bronx Zoo 90. It's on Peacock. It's about the 1990 Yankees. Phenomenal, by the way. I figured you'd like it. Just phenomenal stuff. But I looked down at the box score after the game. You're a superstar. When I look and I see you have 31 points in a playoff game, and I'm like, oh, he had an off night. Jaen Brunson. I'm expecting 40, 44, 40. He's had 5 40-point games. He's got to have a big game. He has to have a big game. And of course, the Joker, the playoffs, you get to watch every game. There is a reason he's a 3-time MVP. He's just deadly. And then there's one more series still going on. The Celtics, for being like the best team all year, they've gotten like no play in the playoffs because they're just kind of rolling through teams. Cleveland, Miami, they're just lying in wait. Going to be an interesting series, whoever they play. But you got Dallas hanging on in that other series. How do you see that ending?
Dallas is up 3-2 now, right? They're not hanging on. They're up 3-2. And I think I'll say it again. Kyrie, with his experience, everyone forgets the greatest shot in the history of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Is Kyrie, not LeBron, when he hit that 3 to win the championship. I think that was the championship that Draymond gave to them, right?
Yeah, when he missed Game 6 because he's a dope, and they came back from 3-1 down, 1-2 in Golden State.
Right. So that is one of those comebacks, but
great comebacks I've ever seen.
But with a little bit of an asterisk because of what Draymond did, and to this day they love Draymond and all that. But I think he cost them a championship and made the Cleveland fans. My son was going to school in Cleveland that year when they won, and it was like crazy. But whatever. I think Dallas is going to win that series. OKC, again, they're very, very, very good, but they're very, very, very young. I mean, they're just very young and they haven't been there before. And you got an experienced guy like Kyrie and a superstar like Doncic. And again, they need help, like all these big guys need help, but it usually comes down to your best players. If your best players don't play not good, if they don't play really, really well, if not great, you're going to have trouble, if Murray is 4 for 18 or whatever the heck he was the other day, it's going to be hard for Denver to win, I think. But I think with, we love Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a superstar. I think he's lost in OKC, but he's a superstar. But I don't know if, I don't think they're going to win 2 games. And with Doncic and Kyrie, either one of them can go for 40 or they both can go for 30, I think it's going to be Dallas.
Well, we shall see. Let's segue into the NHL because Dallas did advance to the conference finals last night in double overtime. I don't know if you saw. They had a disallowed goal in the first.
Oh, what a terrible call that you saw! Terrible call. I still don't understand.
Henrik Lundqvist. I know he's a goaltender, but he kept saying, "No, that should have been just." What are you talking about? The guy's not. Duchesne was not in the crease.
Well, I don't know how. And maybe I just don't know the rule because they did review it, but Makar hit Duchesne into the goalie. So how is that Duchesne's? And talk about justice for once, finally, because it was Duchesne who scored the winning goal in the second overtime. But even Ottinger, they interviewed Ottinger, the goalie for the Stars after the game, and he said, I don't know how that call happened or something like, he didn't want to get fined, I guess. but he said something, and you were like, "Yeah, everybody. I don't know how did it get called, but there's a little justice." And don't forget, Duchesne played 9 years in Colorado. He was the number 3 draft pick overall in the whole draft, first round pick by Colorado in 2009. This was his 3rd overtime goal in the Stanley Cup playoff and the playoffs. So you got to give him a lot of credit. But I was mystified that they called that goal off, and they called it off right away. But if you get knocked into the goalie, I don't know how that's your fault, unless there's something about the rule I don't know.
Well, it happened actually in a Boston game the other night, which I thought was it wasn't goalie interference. It should have been a cross check. It was a good play by the Florida Panthers, but that was blatant. Last night, I still thought even when he was pushed, I thought he kept his space. The goaltender, they're trying to make the goaltender with the rules, they're trying to make him work a little harder to get out of those situations. I just thought it was the ref was so demonstrative and so definitive right when it happened. I thought that's not one that to me is like so cut and dry right away. That was a wow. And then they reviewed it. I'm like, I thought they should have overturned that. It would have been a little anticlimactic. Oh, the ref points and then they jump on the, you know what I mean? That would have been weird.
Right.
But hey, Dallas advances, and your Rangers, well, let's talk last night, because Boston has a chance to send it back to Florida for a game 7. They're up 1-0 in the game, and then they give up a second period goal, and then a late third period goal with about a minute and a half left. It kind of came out of nowhere. And these series, you think, oh, this is going to go back to a game 7, and we'll get to your Rangers series in a minute when they score 4 goals in the third period. But I thought Florida was the better team, although Boston last night, I thought of the series, that was a game I thought they outplayed the Panthers, but it doesn't happen that way. Panthers find a way to win. They become a little bit more disciplined than they were last year. The coach even said so after the game. They don't take as many penalties as they did last year. And that wasn't a fluke last year when they came out of nowhere and beat Boston, who had the greatest regular season of all time. Again, the President's Trophy. You don't want to win the President's Trophy. We'll get to your Rangers. But so pretty impressive job by the Florida Panthers, and they are set to play your Rangers Wednesday night, game 1 at the Garden. And the Rangers look like they were about to, go back to Carolina for a game 7 after they led the series 3-0. They're down 2 goals, and Carolina looked like they dominated a game 6, and then 4 third period goals, which is what Carolina did to them in one of the previous games. Chris Kreider has a natural hat trick in 9 minutes. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, but I have to tell you, and this unfortunately for him is going to get lost in the shuffle, but I thought one of the greatest plays I've ever seen in the NHL playoffs ever. Carolina's winning 3-1. The Rangers have to score. This is 6:55 left in the second period. And Lindgren, who's a defenseman, goes in and puts the puck between the pads of the goaltender, and it's dribbling towards, I'm sure you saw this by now, it's dribbling towards
one of the greatest plays I've ever seen.
He beats him, and Jordan Martinook dives, reaches with his stick, and the puck is this far from being totally over the line and knocks it out. I like Linda Cohen on ESPN, and I know she's a hockey person. She said, oh, this might be the best play in the playoffs. Like the best play in the playoffs. This is one of the greatest plays in the history of the playoffs.
It's unbelievable.
You won't see a thing like that. And when I saw that, Ranger fan, I'm like, this isn't our night. I mean, it's 3-2 in the second period. You got a chance. This isn't our night. And then what Kreider did, you probably know this because they said the stat over and over. Only Gretzky in 97, where the Rangers didn't win. Of course, Messier with the great will win tonight. Now, I've already written on speaking of sports, the Kreider, to me, the Kreider hat trick is more natural hat trick, is more important than Messier's, because Messier's third goal was, I'm not knocking it, but it was an empty netter.
Yes.
I'm not taking it away from him. He did it. He got a hat trick. But this one, Kreider's one of the great guys I've ever seen at not tipping pucks that are down on the ground. He can do that. But how these players today, their hand-eye coordination, and Kreider says he practices it, but the first one he tipped in was like 3 feet off the ground. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the great comebacks of all time. And I tell you, I would have been worried if the Rangers lost that game. And after that incredible stop by number 48, it was, by the way, if you're watching on Carolina, um, I thought they were done, and I thought they'd be in trouble in Game 7.
You did?
Thankfully, I didn't write that. I didn't think they could do it. But this is not shocking because the Rangers have come from behind a lot. But to come from behind 3-1 after an incredible stop against you, and to get 4 goals, including the fourth one was an empty netter by Gaudreau. But that's an incredible win. They got a lot of extra rest. I know Ranger fans were rooting for the Bruins to beat Florida, of course, so they'd have to play a Game 7. But, everybody's going to have a good rest for the playoffs. And look, I like the Rangers. I said before this series, whoever wins Rangers Carolina is winning the Stanley Cup. But certainly the Panthers are a very tough out. So I think this is going to be a real good series. I still like the Rangers. I like them to win it all now, as I said. But this Game 6 is right up there. There are a lot of parallels to 94. For example, as you know, the Rangers did win the President's Trophy that year.
That's
And
death.
it seems to have been a jinx lately, which was also in the back of my head when Carolina had won the first two, and I mean the last two, and they're winning Game 3 to make it a 4-3, a 3-3 thing. They're winning 3-1 in the second period, but actually into the third period. So I give the Rangers a lot of credit. They're tough. They got the goalie. Shesterkin in the third period was fantastic, and I think they have a goalie who can win the cup. But Panthers have Bobrovsky. I think he's an excellent goalie as well. And so I think it's going to be a real tough one, but I think the Rangers can win this one. And I think we'll look back at the Carolina Game 6 as maybe the turning point of their season if they win the Stanley Cup. And if they don't, it was just a great comeback.
Was a great comeback. Let me ask you this. How big of a difference does Peter Laviolette make to the Rangers? He's a coach. He's won a cup with Carolina. He took a 7 seed in the Flyers to the Stanley Cup Finals.
I love Laviolette. He's been a great coach for a long time. And it was I hope you saw after the game, when he was hugging Brind'Amour, because Brind'Amour was his captain when Brind'Amour was a star on Carolina, and Laviolette was the coach when they won the Stanley Cup. That must have been so surreal.
That's surreal.
But I like Brind'Amour because he said, the first 3 games we played pretty well, and he didn't lose his cool, and they won Game 4, and they won Game 5, and you thought they were going to win Game 6. But they're a very good team, and I think I told you they were missing one of their top 4 defensemen, this Pesce, who's from Tarrytown and grew up a Ranger fan. He couldn't play at all. He got hurt in the previous round, and I think they missed him. Would he have been the difference between winning and losing? Maybe. But they missed him. He didn't play at all in the whole series. And I actually know his dad, who is, raised his family in Tarrytown. And he told me on Wednesday night, he said he skated Wednesday. He couldn't play on Game 6, but if there was a Game 7, he was gonna. It's just funny because I know the son a little bit, but he said, yeah, he's going to play. If there's a Game 7, he's going to play it. But if they lose Game 6, he'll be here bowling because we bowl in the same league in the summer. He said he'll be here at bowling next week. And I'm like, Game 7 against the Rangers or bowling?
How great is that? That's fantastic stuff. That's fantastic.
And they're the nicest people. You know this forever. Even when I was a kid, the hockey players, always the nicest guys, happy to sign autographs, classy guys.
Very down to earth.
Few, if any, prima donnas.
Very down to earth.
And I love the hockey players always since I was a little kid with my dad going to the Garden for we could sneak down for autographs because he knew how to do that. But they've always been Canadian, American now, doesn't matter. Even foreigners, they're the nicest guys.
Real nice guys.
Good win for the Rangers. Tough series coming against the Panthers. I still like the Rangers, and I like them to win the whole thing, which I have from the beginning. I picked them. I can't tell you I thought they were the big favorites. Actually, Carolina was a bigger favorite than they were when it first came out.
Vegas had them to win the cup. They were the odds-on favorite to win the cup, which wasn't a bad play because every game was close. There were a couple overtime games that the Rangers won early, and those are big swing games when you win over a couple overtime games. I remember in 93, 93, the Canadians won 10 overtime games, and they won the cup, their last cup, by the way. But Peter Laviolette took Nashville to the finals, the Flyers to the finals. He won a cup in Carolina. and now he's got the Rangers poised to.
Yeah.
Does he surpass Keenan if they win this one? If they win the title, where's Keenan and Laviolette sticks? I know Neil Smith and Keenan. There was a little bit of contentiousness there, but I mean, they won the cup after 54
Yeah.
years.
54 years. Keenan wears out his welcome kind of wherever he went.
Does. He does.
Laviolette is not like he goes from place to place, but I think he gets more credit if they win the cup. To me, he gets more credit than Keenan. And a
Well,
lot of people will tell you behind the scenes in '94 that some of the players hated Keenan, and some people think they won the cup despite Keenan. I don't buy into that myself, but
oh, I know the Flyers hated him. Took the Flyers to 2 Stanley Cup Finals. They hated him.
right.
They
But you know, he's a Tortorella is a
Scotty
team.
Bowman. Everyone hated Scotty Bowman. He won like 7 cups.
Right. So
Tino Cicerelli, he was always pound on him, and Cicerelli has a jewelry box full of rings.
and by the way, if Laviolette wins this cup, he's a Hall of Fame coach.
Oh, absolutely.
He might be already.
He might be already. He really has done a nice job. And Chris Kreider, 12th year with the Rangers out of Boston College. He was great as a rookie. I watched him the other night. I said, let me go check his. Has he been with the Rangers this whole time?
Incredible
Run. All right, well, not a lot of football going on, but we do have a horse race to talk about today. That's your specialty, the Sport of Kings. Mystic Dan is running in the Preakness, but the favorite was scratched. Talk to me, Goose.
Yeah, well, Muth had a temperature, and they're very careful with that.
Did he have foot cream or hoof cream or whatever they use?
No, but we're going to talk about Bob Baffert, of course, because you have, suspended an extra year, as you know, from the Derby.
He had a bad attitude or something.
And so partly because of that, well, now the Derby winner, who I thought might be the favorite before him, but he was the second choice. Now he's going to be the big favorite. And so it's Mystic Dan who won the Derby. I will say this. He had the greatest trip ever in the history of the Derby. He just sat on the rail, got room in the stretch, and won. As you know, the Derby's a mile and a quarter. It's always been weird to me. The Preakness is a mile and a 3/16, so it's a 16th of a mile shorter. So you don't usually see the closers coming in. One of the closers who raced well in the Derby is Catching Freedom, who came from 13th to finish 3rd. But I don't like him because he's a closer and this race is shorter. So how's he going to be better than he was in the Derby? He was real good in the Derby. I'm not going to pick the favorite who won the Derby. I'm not going to pick him, although I think he's going to be like even money now, or 6-5 or something like that. And so you're going to laugh at who I like, but of course I'm picking the Bob Baffert horse. Why, you ask? Well, because
he always wins. And he's got the best hoof cream.
You might remember that Baffert last year didn't race in the Derby and he won the Preakness. And it was the 8th time he's won the Preakness. He's far ahead in Preakness wins all time. So he has a horse named Imagination who hasn't raced. And the one knock on him to me is he hasn't raced since April 24th. And he couldn't race in the Derby because he's a Baffert horse, but he finished 2nd in the Arkansas Derby. He's got a lot of speed. He originally had the 9 post. Now it's the 8 post because the favorite is scratched. And so it's only an 8-horse race. He should be on or right near the lead. The race is shorter. In fact, what was interesting to me is the Arkansas Derby is a mile, and I'm sorry, he was in the Santa Anita Derby. That's a mile and an eighth. So he's only going a little more. A mile and an eighth, of course, is a mile and 2/16. So he's going only a 16th of a mile more. And so I think he's going to blast out to the lead. I think he's going to get bet because there's always the Baffert angle now. You're afraid. I'm not saying this is happening, but maybe he's going to do something to the horse. And how did he win the Preakness last year? There's always questions around Baffert. On the one hand, he's one of the most successful trainers, maybe the most successful trainer ever. On the other hand, because this horse got DQ'd from the Derby now 3 years ago, you're like, well, really? I mean, really? So what's he doing? And, the whole hoof cream thing, he's got a defense, but the trainer responsibility rule, which I talked to you about, I was a trainer in harness racing for 10 years. You as the trainer are screwed. If anything comes up on your horse, it's your responsibility. Doesn't matter what your defense is. Doesn't matter if you said it was a cream. Doesn't matter if the groom didn't know. Doesn't matter if the vet gave you the wrong thing. it's your fault.
Mhm.
And that's what now, I think they went out of their way because he didn't show remorse. They went out of him. I thought your punishment is your punishment. You serve your time.
You get
And
tacked
now
on another
tacked
year
on
because
another year. And I'm not the biggest Baffert fan, but that's not right. You got 2 years suspension. Okay, I could race this year. And then they just said unilaterally, because he hadn't shown remorse, I'm giving another year suspension. Oh, well, does that mean they can do it next year? So I think this makes Baffert so upset that he's got this horse in who I think can win. Actually, he had Muth in too, the favorite who was scratched. So he was probably odds on to win the Preakness before the scratch. Now it'll be harder for Imagination, who hasn't raced in a long time. But I think he's going to be on or near the lead. There's not a lot of speed. There's a little speed. And again, it's harder to come from behind in a shorter race, especially if you just raced in the Derby. To me, I've said this to you before, to race 3 times in 5 weeks, horses are not bred like that or raced or trained like that to do that. And I think it's very, very tough. Now, we have had Triple Crown winners. We didn't have one since 78, but we've had, I think, 2 in the last 5 years or something. Justify, that whole thing. But I think Imagination has a big shot. I think he's going to get bet, though. I thought he was like 6 or 8 to 1 morning line. I think he's going to get bet down. I don't think he'll be the favorite, but I think he'll be low. But I like him for all the reasons I've said. And again, I think he'll be on or near the lead, and I think he can win it on the front end. I love a horse in the Belmont who I'll save to the Belmont. He's not racing in the Preakness because he's a closer. And what a lot of guys do today, if they don't win the Derby and they have closers, they skip the Preakness. And so then they have like 4 weeks off to get his horse ready instead of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, actually 5 weeks off from the Derby to the Belmont. And I think it's going to be a closer. I assume he's going to race. I think he's healthy, but I'll save it for then. I liked him in the Derby and he was no good, but if you watch the Derby, he got ping-ponged, as they say, at the beginning of the race. And the jockey afterwards said we were done 20 yards out of the gate. Because when you get sideways by both horses coming out of the gate, there's not much you could do. But I'll save that for 3 weeks from today.
Well, I might resurrect my gambling career again today. I'm still stinging. I mentioned this to you before the show that I had the Eagles over 11 wins last year, and I bet that in like July, and they win 10 of their first 11 games and go 1-6 down the stretch. 1-6 down the stretch. All right, didn't cash there. But all that being said, who am I betting today to win some money?
Imagination.
That's what I thought. All right, so Imagination to win it?
Yep.
I'm all over that, bro. Great stuff as usual. I'll be home next week. We'll do it from our normal studios. You can catch Steve Stuffs on his daily Facebook page, Speaking of Sports with Steve Callis. Wrote some great stuff last week on the NHL. I love that thing you wrote.
Oh, so did you. With Gordie Howe. With Gordie Howe, that was great.
No one would ever come up with that stuff. You got to check out Steve's Facebook page. You can check out his videos on westchestercountypost.com, on Facebook. This podcast on Facebook, YouTube, every Saturday. We usually tape Saturday mornings. Now sometimes we do Friday mornings, and it will also be on, I promise you today, Apple and Spotify and Amazon Marketplace, Deezer, and all the other outlets. You can check it there. Appreciate y'all watching as always, folks. And Steve, great job as usual, man.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too. Appreciate it, folks. We'll catch you next week.